I think that that goes along with like this other idea of goal setting is not necessarily about having those very specific, measurable, attainable, realistic time-based SMART goals as we were kind of leaning
Mhm.
towards right now. But I know like James Clear in his book Atomic Habits was not necessarily being so specific with your goals, but making them identity based. Like, who do you want to be? What type of person do you want to be? And then you get to guide your behaviors to meet that identity. And the goal of that is really to create systems where you vote for the type of person you want to be more than you vote for the person you don't want to be. So, from like a leadership perspective and hearing you talk, if you're a person who wants to grow your coach's tree, for lack of a better word, your coaching tree, then you might say, my goal, or who I want to be as a leader is somebody who elevates others and makes my network stronger and builds the next group of leaders. Then your behavior dictates that. So when you have an opportunity to lift somebody up, or you have an opportunity to learn from somebody else, or you have the opportunity to open up a door so someone can develop a skill set or their network or again, just capacity, then you do that versus worrying about how it's going to affect you individually because you're not saying, I want to be a type of leader who elevates others as long as I'm safe. You're saying I want to elevate other people, and that becomes again your behavior and your habits. And so for me, again, as again a manifester, I think that's part of like my goal setting process. I like the idea of SMART goals, and I like the idea of planning and sitting down and having action steps and thinking about who can support me, and that I think is very, very important. But for me, again, just the way that I process, this is not to say that doesn't work really, really well for other people because I've used it with other people and it's eye-opening and they can take action. For me, just the way that I process life is I set intentions. I don't even call them goals per se, but I set intentions for what I want to focus on or who I want to be for the year. So to give like an example, New Year's is coming soon, sooner than I can believe. And do you know, I looked this up before we got online today, that only about 44% of Americans do New Year's resolutions now. And of that 44%, about 8% are actually successful. So much so that the second Friday of the year is known as National Quitters Day. That's about statistically when people give up on their New Year's resolutions. And it could be, again, because they're not using the right method to plan their goals. It could be they're not committed to it. It could feel obligatory. Like there's lots of reasons why people might not be successful. But I know, like for myself personally, I really think about that idea of what's my intention, and then I make like in the moment decisions based on what fits that intention. I started doing this in like 2020, and the intention for 2020 was kindness, which I didn't even know that that was going to be so necessary in 2020. But my intention was I want to choose kindness this year. This is going to be my focus. This is my intention. My goal for the year, I guess you could say, is to be as kind as I can. And I kept that in the back of my mind. Every time I have an opportunity, I'd say, "Ugh, what would be the kind thing to do right now? What would be the kind thing to do?" And it just became a habit to where I didn't have to think about it anymore. And it stuck with me. It has absolutely stuck with me. I don't always have that great of luck though. The next year I tried to have a year of health. Like my intention is to be healthy, and it became a year of travel. So whatever, it was fine. It was an intention, but maybe mentally healthy was what I was looking for. I'm it's still I didn't really put it into health, but I did a lot of mentally healthy things that year to prioritize my well-being. So I'm going to stick with it. That was a win. So again, everybody can process things different. I know I really love James Clear's framework in his book, The Atomic Habits, because it focused less on the goal and more on the systems, like what habits that you have. I think like his famous quote, the thing that always resonated with me was, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And I think about that regularly. It's not like what you want to do, but what you're doing that's going to get you to where you want to be. The other thing he says is, your current systems are perfectly designed for your current outcomes or your current results. So whatever you're doing, like you mentioned earlier, if you have a to-do list every day and you're getting it done, then that's working for you. Keep doing it if it's giving you those outcomes. But if you're making a to-do list every day and you don't ever get to it, then maybe change the way you approach it. Maybe I have to set a goal of I need to do my to-do list every day, and that becomes like the goal. So I don't think there's any one right way, but there are definitely consistencies, and the right way to do goal setting is the way that works for you. It's the way that gets you to your outcomes. It's the way that gets you to change behaviors, to change actions, to have maybe the humility to know that you need help and you need support. Um, I know for me, I am the least accountable person to me. I'm just going to say it right now. I am the least accountable. I think we've talked about this before, Carl. If I make a commitment to me, like on Friday, I'm going to do this, I'll do it as long as nothing shinier comes up, like something more exciting comes up. But if I'm accountable to someone else, like if I say, okay, Carl, we're gonna do our podcast on Friday, I will keep that commitment, but I don't keep commitments to me because I'm very flexible. I'm very understanding. So there are times in my life, as again, someone who's not a great planner, where I do have to be incredibly intentional, like I am today. Today I'm gonna get through those bins because I'm noticing the effect of having that chaos on my day is not a good one. I want to be a happy, healthy, excited person, and I am like a tornado right now because again, that piece of my life is a little out of whack. And once I get that organized, then I can go back to who I want to be, which is peaceful, happy, joyful. That's what I'm looking for. And I can't do that in my current situation. I need to get that taken care of. So that's why it's a priority for me today.
Cool. And I hear you. Setting intentions is important. I set an intention when I was very young that I wanted to um, make more money and work less, right?
Mm-hmm.
People,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean? I said, I want to make more money and work less. And, the things that I worked at, things that were, you know, um, challenges. I mean, I work more now than, in hours spent
Mm-hmm.
than I did when I was, that age, 25, 26. But the stuff that I do is so enriching and fulfilling that it's not really work, and it's it's a passion. I mean, I have to put effort
Mm-hmm.
into it, right? But I was working on a class until 9 o'clock last night on a Sunday, um, which was fine because then I got in the tub afterwards in the hot tub and enjoyed the last clear night before the gloom and the rain came in. But and when we're done here, I've got another class to build um for the water boards, and I'm excited to do that and to look at it and to get it done and to organize it, right? Um, but those are things, and people are like, well, I mean, you work more. Yeah, but it's not that, what am I doing here? What's my purpose? Why am I selling this dishwasher to somebody? Is this where I want to be the rest of my life? Right? Am I, those things like that. This is stuff that okay, if I do this, I get to present this to leaders from county and state agencies, and then some, and financial institutions and whoever else will have me for keynotes or whatever else it is that I do this research and present these findings and help them to build their capacity and how to do these things themselves. That's a purpose, right? That's that's the important piece that I think people really, you know, are missing. They have a goal. Yeah, I want to lose 30 pounds. What's the purpose of losing 30 pounds? Right. Well, when people have a purpose, well, I have a wedding to go to in 3 months and I need to fit into that dress that I want to wear. People are more motivated, more, focused on getting that done. If the purpose is I want to go back to school, just because I want my parents to be proud, or, I want my dad to get off my back. Well, that's a short-term, purpose from somebody else, and it's not yours, right? That motivating factor is, what is it that you want to do? What are the perks that you're going to get from this, right?
Hmm.
And the perks, and I have some P's when it comes to goal setting, right?
Hmm.
And
Tell me.
so Carl's P's, his pet peeves. Ooh, I like that. Carl's pet peeves are plan, right? You got to have some type of plan, right? And for and does it doesn't have to be for everybody. For me, I have to have a plan. Saying I'm going to do something is different than saying I'm going to do this today or I have to get this done by Monday, right? So, how do I plan? And then second is prioritize. What are the things that come first? Because if I don't recognize what my priorities are, I'm playing Wordle, crossword puzzles, watching Below Deck sailing out, watching Yellowstone, which came out yesterday, right? There's many other
Mhm.
things that squirrels that I'll chase. What are the priorities? How do I plan to make those priorities happen? The third is people. Who are the people that you need to get involved or at least discuss your plans with, right? Who are the people that are affected by your goals? And a lot of people, they end up not chasing their own goals because they don't want to bother other people or don't want to have that conversation with other people, because those people, why do you want to do this? That's not going to happen. How is that going to help you? Blah, blah, blah. Right. And so having those folks involved, right? Just like Locke said, to have that person not just to hold you accountable, but also those people who um that are important to you recognize what you're doing, why you're doing it, when you're doing it, so they don't interrupt, they don't intrude, they don't have expectations that you can't always follow through on, right? And the next P is progress. How do we know we're making progress, right? When we're in the midst of a goal, how do we know we are accomplishing that goal? And what's a regular milestone, as you mentioned, to check in on, right? And I've done this, in a few different places and understand, how I can manage my progress, right? And the
Mhm.
last thing, the last P so far, there might be other P's, but the last P is party. How am I going to celebrate accomplishing milestones and then the overall goal? And to recognize how it makes me feel, which means that feels good. What other goals can I accomplish? Or maybe my goal is to get to where I am right now and then to consolidate on that. That could be a goal too,
Mhm.
right? So, once you accomplish that degree or that certificate, okay, so, what are you going to do with it? Right. And so maybe just to be able to have that as something you can put at the end of your initials on LinkedIn, or just to make you feel better about calling yourself,
Right.
like I said, so I've wanted to get that coaching certification for 8 years because I've been coaching for 12, but I didn't have the certification from the ICF. And in my head, evidently, those three letters at the end of that are really important to me, right? So, I've always maybe downplayed the coaching that I've done. And once I finish that certificate, I'm not going to downplay it anymore. This is who I am. This is what I am, even though I've already been that. So that's a personal thing for me, right? So just to recognize, how am I going to celebrate my accomplishment of accomplishing that goal, right? So plan, prioritize people, progress, perks, and party. Those
I
are
love it.
those are my pet peeves of goal setting.
You down with Carl's PPPs? Yeah, you know me. I don't know if that's a good song.
I like it. I like it. I
I
loved it
love
the
that.
first time it came out, and I like it better now.
No, I think all of those pieces are important. And again, how important they are, each individual one is really dependent on you. Um, but again, find like play around with the goals. If you're not getting the outcome you want, then maybe a different strategy would be helpful. And I love how simple those different P's are. I love the party. I love, the people thinking about who can support you. I'll also really understanding how you are motivated and how what you need from other people and not expecting them to know, but to really advocate or to set some boundaries about what you need. Um, you know, like bless my poor Mr. Salcido. He's such a victim of me and who I am. I'm having some empathy for him right now because I'll tell him, I, like, again, I'll do all the planning. I'll be like, okay, this is what I've decided. I've decided that because we are gonna start exercising every day. We're gonna wake up at this time. We got a time, a place. We're gonna go for a walk. We're gonna start out with 10 minutes and then we're gonna go to 20 minutes and then we're gonna get to 30 minutes. And I need us both to be really accountable. And he's like, yeah, right. And then the first day I'll do it. And then the next day he's like, okay, so did you want to go for our little 10-minute walk? And I'm like, meh,
Yeah.
no, today my hair hurts, or, I
That's
have something. And
that's
and
us
he
in the
goes,
gym.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. And he goes, okay. And so then later on, here I am back at square one, wondering why my pants are fitting all tight. And I'm like, you know what? I thought we were going to be accountable and we were going to hold each other accountable. And he's like, it's not worth the fight to me. Like, if you tell me no, we're not going, like, I'm not going to push you because then you get pissy and then you got an attitude. And I just don't want to deal with that side of you. So if you don't want to go, then don't go. I'll go by myself. And I'm like, that's not helpful, right? But at the same time, I can't make him make me accountable. I have to make myself accountable. And like, you cannot expect other people to hold you accountable if you are not going to do that heavy lifting as well. Like, again, you can have support, you can have someone who encourages you, but if you're not willing to do the work at the end of the day, if you don't achieve your goal, that's on you, not on the people who you had to help you, There's always going to be haters. And if the haters are the ones that are holding you back, you have to take some ownership of that too. But sometimes you have to succeed despite the circumstances. Like, I don't know about you, but I think I get more accountability from the haters than people who actually support me. I'm actually more motivated by proving people wrong than by people who know that I'm going to do a great job. Because I have some really supportive people in my life. I have people who encourage me. I have people who, keep me humble. I have people who, really do have my best interest in mind and I trust them. But the ones that really get me out of bed in the morning, the ones that really make me persevere, are the people who tell me I can't or I shouldn't or it's not for me. I'm like, let's see about that. Oh, so I succeed out of spite. I mean, I don't know. I think we might have had this conversation before, but I really do succeed out of spite. When I got pregnant at 17, like, I don't know how many people told me, "Oh, you just ruined your life. You're so smart. You could have made something of yourself, and now you've ruined your life." And I'm like, I am not going to be a statistic. I am not going to ruin my life. Like, I'm going to succeed no matter what. And so I went through hell to get where I'm at today, but I did that to prove that having a child was not going to ruin my life. And it didn't ruin my life. It enhanced my life. It kept me on the path because I wasn't just doing it for me anymore. I was doing it for these people that I've created that I love and cherish and wanted them to have a good life. So, like, that's my support system. I didn't have to look at my kids and say, will you guys support mom and be the best version of herself? But they still were motivating to me because I wanted them to have all of the opportunities that maybe weren't available to me. And, I think as parents, we want our kids to live a better life than we'd had. So it's just interesting. Again, I do everything out of spite. Don't tell me I can't do something. I probably will do it just to prove you wrong. Because that's who I might be a hater. I might be a hater.
So that kind of leads to another P,
Hmm.
right? Petty.
Petty.
Okay. The petty king,
Ooh,
petty
call
queen,
me
right?
Petty LaBelle. You can call
Petty
me Petty
LaBelle, yes.
LaBelle because
No, but
I
really,
will succeed.
but really, I will survive. Yes,
I will succeed.
but that makes sense what you're talking about, which is another P that I wrote down for real. Personal. It has to be yours.
Hmm.
It can't be somebody
Right,
else's,
right.
right? Somebody else's goal for you is never as motivating as your goal for yourself, right?
No,
And you
never.
have to know why you're doing it, and it can't always just be to show the haters wrong, because that's a short-term fueling, right? And
Right,
it keeps you it gets your energy up when you're sitting on the couch and you're like, why do I have to write this paper? Well, because my cousin said I'm going to be shit. So here we go, right? But that doesn't fuel people all the time. There are some people who, take how they were raised or what they've been taught and turn that into success, right? Um,
right.
but that all comes down to that idea of personal. This has to be something you have to take personal. You have to be able to recognize how you are going to feel and personally be able to utilize whatever it is that you accomplished. And also you have to
Hmm.
recognize if this doesn't happen, how will I feel? How will I be able to, will I be able to look myself in the mirror? Right. To be a
Right,
good person is really important because at the end of the day, I'm not worried about how other people see me. I have to look in the mirror and I have to say, are you
right,
satisfied with who you are in this space in your life? Right. And so I'm the only one I have to live with. Right. I mean, I have other
right,
people that I do stuff for, and I am more motivated. Like you mentioned, I am much more motivated to get shit done for other people. Right.
right,
And so when I have a class or a meeting, I move heaven and earth to make sure that happens. I'm working on that. I somebody moved up a deadline for me in terms of, getting stuff done. And it's this Friday, but I don't have time. I'm driving back and forth to work. Right. So today is the day I get it done. Right. So I told my wife, hey, we talked about it this weekend. What are your plans for this weekend? And we went to dinner. We had a date Saturday night. Sunday I played tennis and I helped her in the yard a little bit. And so today she said it's just going to be me getting ready for work. I say cool because I got a class to write, right? So, we have that conversation, because that's somebody who is looking for, prioritizing, right? So sometimes you got to
right,
prioritize things that are not necessarily part of the specific goal that you want to accomplish, but part of that overall goal of being family, right? I want to make more money and work
right.
less. Well, you know what? I'm making Fridays my administrative day. I haven't scheduled classes on a Friday after December. My entire schedule for 2025, which is crazy already. Um, Almost all of my Fridays are open unless I have a gig or, we're doing a podcast, right?
Right.
But that gives me time to be able to take the rest of the week and teach so that I have some semblance of a 9 to 5. Why? Because I
Right.
want to spend more time for my wife, my daughter, my stepson, my bands, whatever it is. I don't want to feel like I am stretched too thin. And so that doesn't necessarily correlate with the idea of making more money because I'm not giving my availability on Fridays and I've had to turn down some Friday gigs and that does not correlate with my goal of making more money, right? It's hard for me to turn down money, but at the same time, I recognize the larger goal, the larger intention is to be the best husband, father, person I can be. And part of what makes me happy, what drives me, is how I can make other people feel, especially those people that are important to me. So the specific goal of making more money and working less, you know, it's it's gonna work out. It's gonna work out. I'm finally at that point where now I can actually give my availability the way I want it to be after 17 years in the game, and it's a good feeling, right? And just like you have certain boundaries now with work, right, which you've established, and
Mhm.
actually you were kind of an inspiration for that, right? And so it's You know, well, it's true. It's true. I don't want to be tied to my desk. I could stay here all, if it was just me and my desk, I would be Ebenezer Scrooge rubbing two nickels together and not having anybody to celebrate it with. Right. And
Right. Right.
that's no bueno. Right. So, or at least for me, that's no bueno for me. It might work for you if you are Scrooge McDuck, handle your business. Right. But you know,
DuckTales.
yeah, I can't go swimming in a sea of gold. That just ain't that ain't how I'm built. So yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, when you say that, because I think that's part of like goals, right? Part of the goal setting process is to be able to reevaluate your priorities and reevaluate what's important to you. Because I can tell you, like, if you had asked me, like, what are your goals maybe 10 years ago, it wouldn't be where I'm at today. It would have probably looked very different. Back in that time, I was very much working for a county. I was interested in maybe moving up the chain of command, maybe having a different position of authority. Um, I was probably working on developing my skill set to, again, be able to be promotable and to have the right relationship so I could promote and have, again, that position of influence. I have zero desire for that today, like zero, zilch nada. I don't want to be anybody's boss. It's important to me to help people develop leadership. It's important for me to develop my own leadership, but to say that I'm going to be the boss of someone where I have to be present at work all of the time, I zero interest. And so part of I think goal setting is stopping every now and then and reevaluating where you're at and finding out, is this still something that I'm interested in? Maybe do I need something different? And so the pandemic honestly shifted my whole thought process, like completely shifted my whole thought process. Because prior to that, I was like work, ambition, become somebody important, make yourself indispensable, stretch yourself as far as you can to make sure that you are a value and an asset to your organization. And then I was like, I'm working so hard and I'm being very successful in that mission, but at what expense? I haven't seen my kids. I haven't seen my spouse. I would see my husband once a week for like 3 years. We saw each other on Saturdays. I mean, it kept the love alive, because we only saw each other once a week. So by the time like I was getting on his nerves, it was time for me to leave again. But at the same time, it's like you have this really successful career, but at what expense? The expense was I didn't have a personal life. And it was like, reassess, how important is it for me to be successful at the expense of this? Can I find some balance? And that became the goal, is finding the balance where I could still enjoy and contribute to the like my success at work, and not or, but and also have time to enjoy my family, enjoy my time. I didn't want to wait until I retired to start living life. I didn't want to wait until I was 65 to get the RV and travel the world. Like, why wait when I can technically do it now and do it for longer and have more space? Like, how do I find that balance? And honestly, a lot of times thinking about goals, to get something new, you've got to be willing to give something up. And I don't make as much money as I did, say, 5 years ago, but I also have this richness in my personal life that is unmatched. I have to remind myself from time to time that I'm employed. I don't know if you go through that at all. I'm at the beach, I'm at the pool, and then I'm like, oh, wait, got work to do. I've got to go get this done. I have a deadline. And so being able to like stop and pause and say, okay, it's finding that balance. And I can't weigh one over the other, but I just know this. If I were to die tomorrow, my job would replace me. They would find another instructor, people would find a new coach. Carl, you'd have to find another podcast buddy, but my family would never recover from that. And so my goals have really, really shifted away from success at work to really being a successful member of my family and a successful member of life. I prioritize my happiness over anything else. And I have to say no to a lot of stuff.
So when you talk about that, you talk about your intention is it's it's kind of a controversial subject because I think a lot of people have the wrong, they don't have the wrong idea. They have a different idea of the word that I'm about to say, but it's ambition. What is your
Mhm.
ambition? What do you strive to do, strive to be, right? Um, I had a boss who I think, in the classical sense of the word ambition, she had that idea. She told me one day, she goes, I just have to deal with the fact that you're just not as ambitious as I am. Right. And this is like a year after I finished my doctorate, right? And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
come again? Well, you're just not ambitious. So why am I not ambitious? Well, you don't want my job. And
Yeah.
I said, you're right. I don't want your job. Your job, not right now. Your job is you sit in your office most of the time, you know, coordinating events. I get to do those events. I get to travel up and down the state. I get to go to Red Bluff and Chico and down to Santa Maria and San Luis and Calexico and Imperial and San Diego and Bakersfield and Palm Springs. I get to do that stuff. I get to, travel. I was at that age where I was in my peak travel, right? And I loved
Hmm.
it. And my daughter was old enough that, I could I didn't feel like she was missing a whole lot if I was gone for a night or two. You know what I mean? And and so, I told her, I said, I get to do all that stuff. That's what I want to do. And I was making enough money to be able to do it. Well, it's just not ambition. So for her, the definition of ambition was upward mobility. For me,
Hmm.
ambition was getting to live and work the way that I wanted to, right? And I wasn't 100% there. Like I said, I mean, I wasn't there as much at home as maybe I wanted to, but I was able to be out of the office most of the time. I was able to get to, interact with people and make, differences in different parts of, the state and, those things like build relationships. And
Hmm.
that's who I was and who I wanted to be. I didn't want to sit in an office. I've tried that before. I tried that after. It's not who I am. This is who I am. This is what I do right now, and teaching a class here in the morning and then running to Marysville and teaching an afternoon class tomorrow and Thursday. That's who I am. That's what I like to do. That's what I don't mind doing
Right.
it because it's fun. It's who I am. It's what I'm built for. It's what I'm meant to do. And I've recognized that it's not what everyone is meant to do. I'm okay. That's the personal piece, right? That personal. What's your personal ambition? My dad wanted me to be a doctor. He wanted me to be an anesthesiologist. He said, you can put people to sleep and then go play golf the rest of the day. And I said, but I don't want to be a doctor. That I don't want to be a medical doctor, right? I want to be he was talking. We had lunch last week when I was down in Ventura, and he said, "You've always said you wanted to be a doctor since you were a little kid." I said, "Yeah, but I mean, you wanted me to be like a medical doctor." He goes, "Yeah, but you wanted like to be like a teacher, right?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess I did want to be a teacher, but you know maybe that's me fulfilling my ambition, right? But
Hmm.
your ambition is what it is that you want to do, right? And things fill in. I mean, shit, I wanted to be a baseball player. I wanted to be a fireman. You know, I wanted to be a politician when I was younger, and then I got smart. And then, but just thinking about those things that we do, how do we? I've always wanted to be a teacher. Okay, well, I went, realized that teaching kids wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. I wanted to teach adults, right? And I found my niche. Not everyone looks hard enough. When I came into the county, I was a case manager, right? And I know many people who came into the county as a case manager and are going to retire as a case manager, and they're perfectly happy with that. I know some people are maxed out, and as a EC3 or an SSW3 or whatever else it is, an analyst, right? Where they want to be and they're happy, an eligibility worker 3, that's who they want to be. And they retire after 40 years doing that. That's great, right? There was customer service manager at the bank that I worked at, who they did leadership classes, and um, they thought for senior leaders this was great. Let's give it to the branch leadership, and some of those branch leadership like this is too much. I don't. That's not what I do, and I'm not thinking like that. I'm just making sure the branch is fine and that the staff is happy. This is a little out of my reach. I'm not interested in this. That's perfectly fine. That means you are where you're supposed to be. And if you're where you're supposed to be, you're probably giving yourself the best effort, right? And so we put all these expectations on other people and how they should act and, being should on, right? As John Parker likes to talk about being should on. And
Hmm.
it's, what you should be doing, what you should do to make more money, what you should do as a parent, what you should do in this job, or you should already know this stuff, right? And what if that person's you know, list of shoulds are different than what you think they should know or do and how to act, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And we all have our own ambition, and it's perfectly fine. If somebody wants to be a stay-at-home mom or dad, cool. If somebody wants to, be have a career in the military, cool, right? If that's what you want and you really have thought about it and it's not somebody else's idea for you, man, I'm going to support you any way that I can. How do I help you pass that
Yeah.
ASVAB? Right? How do I help you learn how to change a diaper or to create, to create a transportation schedule to take your kids to school? How can I support that? How can I support you
Hmm.
getting your GED? Right? You know, that's I think it's the opposite of a hater. That's an enabler, right? No, not even an enabler, an empowerer. Empowerer?
Empower,
Empowerer.
empower,
I just made up a
empower.
tip word. I just made up a tip word,
You
right?
need
So
Tiffany's. Let's add that to the Tiffany's dictionary. Love
you
it.
you can
Eh,
you can take
roots,
that.
roots. Yeah, I'm gonna put roots, Carl.
Source. All right. Yeah. So that's
Yeah. No.
ambition.
Yeah.
Ambition. I think when people think about intentionality, that's cool. My intention is to go back to school, but then some people like me, well, I thought you were going back to school. Well, I didn't say when, and life got in the way, and the pandemic hit and things like that. There are many people who, I know that the pandemic might have changed the sources of how they get where they need to get, but it didn't change their overall goal, right? How do we figure out how to make life work to fit what it is that we want to do? And it doesn't mean that what we wanted to do as a kid is going to be what we want to do as an adult, or what we wanted 5 years ago is going to be the same thing that we want now, right? I wanted to travel 10 years ago. Now I don't mind working from home and traveling, right? So, I'm not on the road so much, right? I'm getting a little older. It's getting harder to get out of cars with my bad shoulder and my bad knees, right? And the drive home is a little lot. And so, so the pandemic actually helped me to be a better trainer and a better teacher because I've utilized, the multimedia stuff, PowerPoints and videos and polls and Mentimeters and all those other things like that other people use. I know how to use those and I can access those if I want to improve even in-person classes, right? But at the same time, you know, if I like where I'm at right now, and if I'm off the road even a little more, sometimes I, you know, I I'm good, right? And the older I get, I know I'm probably gonna, want to be able to teach in my shorts more often, like I did, during the pandemic. Okay, cool. But I do like being in front of people. I love that. I miss it. I miss that energy. It's a different type of energy. It's just,
Right.
how can I get my fill of that and then also be able to live the life that I ultimately want to live, right? I'm getting to that
Yeah.
age now where retirement is becoming an ambition. How do I get to retirement when I don't have benefits? Right.
Hmm.
And so that's something that's starting to crystallize in my head. Right. And so it's something that I'm actually accessing resources I've had my whole life. I started asking my dad for financial advice. My dad is a financial whiz. Never asked him about it because it never was that important to me. I was just trying to get through the day and get through the month and pay my rent and pay my mortgage. And now I'm to the point now where I need to start thinking about this. How many more years do I have, you know, driving and standing up, and I know, Nora Gerber's, and, I'm not going to say how old she is, but she's still doing her thing. And I love that she's still doing her thing. Right. And she's made it work to where she can do her thing. I know Maria Robinson was in her 80s taking trains, to places and having county staff pick her up and take her to places. Is that what I want to do? I don't know, but how can I get to where I want to get? How can I work less and make more money? All right, that's my overall
Hmm.
ambition.
I love it. My ambition is at this point, be a good person. I don't maybe think beyond that.
What
I
goes
want to
into
do
being a
lots
good
of things
person?
and my mind changes. Yeah. My mind changes about what I want to do depending on the year, the month, the situation. Um, but if we talk about like literally ambition, it's really to be a good person. I want to be successful, but not at the expense of anybody else. Like I want to, have my rights, but not at the expense of anybody else's rights. Like I want to make sure that when I leave this world, it's better off because I was in it versus not. You know, there's only so much I can control because people can perceive things in different ways, and that's okay. That's their right as well. But honestly, it's like having a clear conscience, like I did the right thing. I treated that person well. I chose kindness. I chose forgiveness. I chose maybe distance, whatever it is. Like I just want to be a good person. And I want to live a good, happy, again, happy, healthy, joyful life. And that's my ambition. And sometimes that means focusing on the professional part of my life because like I have a special skill set and I can rally people around and I have an energy that I bring. And so sometimes being a good person is using that gift for something that's important. And sometimes that means disconnecting and spending time in the desert with my mom and enjoying time with her because that's what I need in that moment. And that's what a good person does is maybe lift her up in her time of change. So if we're like starting to maybe recap, we've talked about a lot of different things around goals. I'll talk about SMART goals if you want to repeat your P's, the Carl's P's, but SMART goals, specific. Don't just say I want to lose weight. Put something that you can be specific about it, like be very specific about what you want to do. It needs to have some type of measurement. Can you tell if it's been done or not? Like be happy. That's a great goal, but how do you measure that? How do you know that it's happening? So can you really think about what the outcome is and what your end goal looks like? You know, action oriented, action oriented. So do I have steps? Are there behaviors? Are there things that I need to do to get to that goal, whatever that looks like? This is where I think a lot of people maybe fall short. This is part of like that framework of um, behaviors and setting up the right systems. But if I set a specific goal, I want to lose 30 pounds by um, June of next year, then that is very specific. That's very measurable. But now the actions, what actions am I going to take that are going to help me lose those 30 pounds? It could be things I need to do more of, it could be things I need to eliminate, but it's going to be rooted in my habits, it's going to be rooted in my choices. And I need to be intentional about that because these things just don't happen most of the time. You've got to change something. Is it a realistic goal? Absolutely. I could potentially lose 30 pounds by June. If I said I'm going to lose it by December, that's not very realistic unless I cut my arm off, which, by the way, I could absolutely cut my arm off and probably lose 30 pounds. That's not what I'm going for. So I really want to be thoughtful about, again, like, is it something that's realistic? Do I have the ability to do it? Do I have the support? Is it something I want to do? Is it something I have the ambition for? I like that word. Um, is it realistic? And of course, timely. So do I have the right time to do it? Is it the right time in my life, maybe even to think about it? Is this the space? Like right now, if I were to say, oh, right now my goal is to practice for a marathon, that's not going to work for me in this time of my life because I don't want to. I'm not interested in it. But maybe at another time it might be important. But it also like looking at your goals, are you being realistic in your time frame and making sure that you have the time to do it in your life? Because again, it does take some effort and some intentionality. I like SMART goals, but I love smarter. goals, even better. So if I put the ER at the end, the E on that smarter goal is to evaluate. How are you doing? It's like that check-in that Carl you talked about, like coming in, checking in. How's your progress? How far have you come? And then the R is reassess, which is it still something that you want? I know, for example, very much like you, Carl, I didn't want to be a doctor, but I did want to be a nurse. And I wanted to be a nurse like my whole life. And then when I started my first semester of college, I found out that nurses have to give people shots and take blood and see blood. And I realized that was never going to work for me. So
Mhm.
my entire life was kind of uprooted because I was like, ooh, people die and I'm not just like taking care of people.
Yeah.
So that wasn't going to work for me. And so I had to really think about it. What was it about being a nurse that called me? And it was I wanted to help people. I wanted to make people's lives better. And so I had to reevaluate and reassess like what my goals were. And that took, by the way, lots of time before I figured out like what I wanted to do. I found my happy place. I have found this is what I've always wanted to do, and I just didn't know it. I have found that I love sharing information with people. I love creating spaces for people to process information and to think about how they want to move around that. I love coaching and having a safe place where people can figure stuff out for themselves without me having to tell them what to do. It's This is the reassess part. I've reassessed and this is what I want to do. I just don't want to do so much that I don't live my best life.
All right.
So it's that balance. So
I love
that's
it.
that smarter, yeah, smarter
Yeah.
goal framework, smarter goal framework.
And it's so important that the reassessment. Like I said, this has got to be something that you want to do. It's got to be something, and this goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of, where, you know, people might think we're being political. Do your homework, and I'm gonna tell you why. When I was in human services, we were out in the middle of the desert. There were two vocational programs that people could go to school if they want to up in the desert. Everything else was down in Bakersfield, right? One was beauty college and the other was medical assisting. And the medical assisting program had just started, had just opened up, and a lot of people were jumping on it because it was 30 hours a week. And so it fulfilled their requirement, right, to participate. So, hey, I'm going to go to school and I don't have to job search. I can just become a nurse. I always wanted to be a nurse. Well, it's a medical assistant, right? Which, if you become a medical assistant, that doesn't help you to get to be a nurse. Being a certified
Mm-hmm.
nursing assistant will help you to become an LVN. You have to be a CNA in California to become an LVN. But people saw medical assisting, front and back office. I can work the front desk. That's fine. So we had a bunch of clients sign up for it, right? 9 to 3, Monday through Friday for I think 6 months. Well, right around 2.5 months in, a bunch of our clients dropped out. And so this was something we all recognized. We put our heads together. So we asked our supervisor. Supervisor called the the medical school, medical assisting college, and she said, so what's happening about 2.5 months in? They said, oh, well, right now they're in the phlebotomy section of the program. So these people are dropping out because they can't stand the sight of blood. So that was something that was important for me to learn that I did not know is for me to be able to have that information. If somebody wants to be a medical assistant, first of all, it doesn't help you become a nurse. Second of all, can you stand the sight of blood? Because you will have to be able to learn how to draw blood, even if you don't have to draw blood in the job. You're going to have to learn how to draw blood to be able to get through this program. And if you can't do it, then don't sign up for it because you know what happens? The medical school will ask for the money and the county will promise to pay it as long as you finish. And what happens if you don't finish? That bill now becomes yours, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
all these clients who dropped out, yeah, it's too bad. They can always come back. They have 6 months to come back. Meanwhile, the invoice will be in the mail. So now these folks who are in existential need are now in deeper and deeper in debt, right? And so do
Mm-hmm.
your homework on your goals. It's not just scratching the surface. Oh, I see this. This is a good way to get out of this. This is a good way to fulfill this, and it might help me. What else do I need to know? What are my prerequisites? Right? What are the
Mm-hmm.
skills I need to know? This is so important, right? It's actually part of can I show you my action plan where it said action oriented?
Yes.
Okay, so we talked about SMART goals, smarter goals. This is my action plan that I utilize for my classes when we do goal setting classes, organization time management classes. This is the action plan I use, and I derived it. I stole it from another UC Davis trainer. I can't remember exactly who it is, but I've also incorporated a lot of the things on my
Hmm.
own. So the goal plan is whatever your specific goal is, right? To lose 30 pounds, right? The date of completion, that's so important. You have to have the deadline. If you don't have the deadline, then you don't know when you're supposed to finish, right? And so my goal is to lose 30 pounds by January 1st, like you mentioned. That may not be attainable. My goal is to lose 30 pounds by the summer of next year. Well, that's 9 months. So 30 pounds, 4 pounds a month. Is that something that is going to be motivating to you? Right? Maybe, right? But whatever it is, to lose 30 pounds in 6 months, okay, so 5 pounds a month, I can, maybe that's manageable. So whatever that is, you want to have the deadline because folks who are deadline driven like me, if I don't have a deadline, I'll wait until the last minute to start working
Hmm.
on it. And then it's unhealthy, right? Or just even say I want to go back to get my degree. Okay, so you want to get an AA. Okay, how far along are you with an AA? Well, I have to, I just finished high school. Okay, so you want to get your AA, and I used to have this conversation with clients. Oh, it'll just take 2 years. It's a 2-year degree, right? I said, okay, well, if you're going to be working and going to school, do you think that's going to be something you can get done in 2 years? Well, sure it is. Okay, well, let me tell you that for me, it took me 4 years to get the equivalent of an AA because I was working two jobs, blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, how about 3 years? Okay, so 3 years is manageable. Sure, right? If that works for you, but you have to really do your research. What does this mean along with the rest of your responsibilities if you're a
Right.
parent, and so the goal is to complete your AA by 3 years. So by December of 2027,
Hmm.
right? Now, 3 years is a long way away. So what do we do? What action steps are there, right? And we have action steps. So the first action, if someone's going to complete a degree, what is the first thing that they need to do? Right? A lot of people say, "Oh, I need to
Probably,
enroll."
yeah.
Well, okay, well, find what if you just enroll? Let's say you enroll at Merced Community College, and maybe Merced Community College doesn't have, what are you interested in? Well, I'm interested in visual arts, or I'm interested in getting into, a pre-med pre-nursing program. Okay, what if they don't? I don't know if they do or don't, but what if they don't?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then I'll just get into something that doesn't interest me. And guess what? Are you motivated to get it done? Right? You have
Right.
to know the benefits. You have to know the perks. Why? What's in it for me to accomplish this? How is this going to help me? How is this going to keep me motivated? Right. So that first action
Yep.
is to find the school that you want to get stuff done. That's how I did my master's and my PhD. I did it online. And because I was too far away from Cal State Bakersfield and they didn't have the degree that I wanted. And so I got a degree in um I I went through a program for instructional design. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to create curriculum, right? So I had to find that right program. So I found one online. But that's the first action. The deadline I gave myself, I have the weekend to do it. So my deadline,
Hmm.
is whatever the end that Sunday of that week. The skills and knowledge that you need. What is it? What are the prerequisites? What are the things you need to know? Maybe you need to have internet access. Maybe you need to know what schools are available, what schools are around. You need to know maybe if you are an online student or an in-person student, how do you learn better? Right? There are folks, who will have to do both, but my daughter, as much as a introvert she is, she prefers being in person in classes.
Hmm.
I do the online, but I actually learn better when I'm in person because I can talk to the teacher and I don't feel like I'm intruding on them, on a Zoom call when, it's not scheduled,
Right.
right? So you need to know those things. Obstacles. If you're a two parent family and you have one car and your husband works nights, how are you going to go to night school? Right?
Right.
If you don't have family to babysit your kids while you're in class, how is that going to work? Right? My mom used to take me to her classes at Skyline College in San Bruno, and I used to sit outside and play with the jukebox. They had a jukebox in the
Oh,
cafeteria,
that's so cool.
and she gave me a roll of quarters, and I just play all the music I wanted. That was my first DJ gig. right? And so, but those little things. So the obstacles, and then think about the solutions. A lot of times people come up across obstacles, have not thought them out, and say, screw it,
Right.
right? But if you think about the obstacles, what's the difficult piece, especially if you're not supported, right? If you're
Hmm.
in a relationship, if you're in a family that has responsibilities, you know, how do you get someone to buy in? Remember, people is one of the P's, right? The people involved. Who's going to help me, right? So family, but then also teachers, guidance counselors, enrollment counselors, right? Your job. I know somebody who is was finishing their bachelor's at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo who worked for San Luis Obispo County, and the last class that they had to finish was on Tuesdays and Thursdays, starting at 3 o'clock. Her shift didn't start till didn't end till 5. So she asked her boss, and they made up an agreement that she was going to make up those 2 hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Right? You have
Nice.
to get that cleared. You can't sneak out and, oh, I hope no one notices. You have to get people involved and get their buy-in and teach and have expectations. And
Hmm.
then what are the
Yep.
benefits? How is that going to help you? Right? What is it going to do for you? Is it going to match your intention, your ambition? Is it going to be the next step in accomplishing a larger goal? Is it going to provide more money? Is it going to provide a credential that will help you feel better about what it is that you already do? Right? You have to have that idea of how this will help me personally. So this is the action plan that I've used historically. I'm going to change them around to match the P's because, the action is the plan,
Hmm.
right? And the skills, right, are what we need to know already, right? So, our prioritization, right? What is the priority, right? And so the people, right? And progress. How do I know I'm making progress when I'm going down this goals, right? How do I know? I lost 100 pounds about 15 years ago, and I used a sheet like this, and I measured, by weight, right? I got on the scale twice a week, and I saw the progress I was making, right, based off of my plan. And my plan was, I'll share with you my plan real quick. It was real simple. It was a fast food diet, right? I was going through a divorce. I was broke, didn't have a whole lot of money. So for breakfast, I would get a fruit and yogurt parfait from McDonald's. And they used to have, you remember the large ones, not the little ones, but the
Yep.
large ones.
Yep.
And I would
Yep.
have one of
I
those for
do.
breakfast. And then I had a side salad from Jack in the Box, which if you've ever had a side salad from Jack in the Box, they're packed in the plastic container. When you put them on a bowl, they
Yep.
just, right? And I used Italian instead of ranch, right? For dinner,
Hmm.
I had chicken fajita pita from Jack in a Box. That's like, it was like $4,
Love the
but
fajita
it's only
pita.
yeah, but it's only 250 calories, and salsa is free, right? So,
Yep.
so I did that, and then I had a granola bar in between breakfast and lunch and dinner. And
Wow.
after that, well, actually, I started with called a miso salad. My friend Marla, who might be listening, hi Marnie Asada. She actually made these salads for me and her. It started on this plan, and I ate those for the first 2 weeks, and then after that, I went to side salads because I was fine. It's the first of getting into those
Hmm.
habits, right? And I mean the weight, and then I mixed in some golf, and I lost 100 pounds in 7 months rather than a year. I gave myself a year, and I lost it in 7 months following this plan,
Wow.
knowing that you're making progress, right? And seeing the progress motivates you even more to stick with things and decide that the priority here is, well, how's it going to help me? It's going to help me feel better. It's going to help me fit better in my clothes. It's going to help me move with my arthritic knee, right? It's going to be able to,
Hmm.
I'm going to be able to do the things that I want to do in my life, right? And so these are things that if you're able to write them down, writing them down makes a commitment to yourself, right? And if you will be more committed to yourself when you see what you've committed to yourself rather than what you tell yourself, right? So these things are
Right.
so important. And so this is an action plan to use that. Like I said, I'm the more I think about it, the more I'm going to modify it to create my pet peeves and how to make that work.
Reassess,
Yes, I am
evaluate, and
reassessing
reassess.
and
No,
grow.
I think that's smart. I
Yeah.
really do. I actually really love that, having that space to write it down. And I would even encourage, for those of you who are more on my wavelength, where I write it down and then I forget about it, put it in a visible place where you can see it every day as a reminder so that you make good choices.
We used to do
So,
that with clients. We had clients put them up in on their refrigerator, on their mirror in their bedroom. I had one client that said he put it up on the wall in the bathroom across from the
Hmm.
toilet, and people started laughing. He goes, "Well, what else am I doing when I'm in there? I'm going to look up and see my goals."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, whatever it is, wherever it is that you, and don't let anybody tell. I have three things that remind me of stuff that I have to do during the day. And people may think it's redundant. People may think there's something wrong with me that I can't remember those things. It's not that I can't remember them. It's just I will squirrel in a minute. And so I know my limitations. I know what helps me to stay focused, right? And what helps me to stay focused is completely different than somebody who's type A that just remembers stuff, and always stays focused.
Mhm.
So I understand that. I'm envious of that sometimes, but I also know what makes me work, and I'm pretty happy with myself. So, you know,
Yeah.
just let me enjoy my shine and let me be ambitious the way I want to be ambitious. Okay.
Okay. Petty LaBelle, that's right, man. Tom Petty over there. So no, I agree with you. I started off saying this and I'll say it again. Whatever works for you is the right way. And there's lots and lots of options of things that can help you plan your goals. And again, what you want to do is completely up to you. So I have one last little method I want to just share real quick. It's funny because it's a coaching method, but I think it works really well for goal planning. It's called the grow method. Goal, reality, options, way forward is the framework. It's an acronym. But goal, I always think about this in the sense of like a road trip. As someone who travels a lot, I always think, where do you want to go? That's the goal. Like, again, your ambition, your passion, whatever you're headed for. You can be as specific and you can create a smart goal around that. Where do you want to go? The reality is, where are you starting from? And so you talked about this again, and what barriers do you have? What support do you have or do you need? What's your current reality? And then compare your reality. That's your starting point on your road trip. So if I'm going here and I'm starting at this other location, what options do I have to get from point A to point B? So again, what skills do I need? What options do I have? This is where you talked about again looking at different schools. Maybe the one school that's closest to me doesn't offer the program that I want. And so what other options are available? And then can I just say there's often more options than what you think. So really do your research there and explore and talk to people who have been successful and what have they done. Get information, chat GPT. Oh my gosh. Use AI. AI is like, oh, like all of this information. So, I mean, the robots are going to take over eventually anyways. You might as well at least have them help you out along the way. So get in there and do what options do you have? And then once you've explored those options that are realistic for your life and your situation and your ability, then make one step in the right direction. I mean, what do they say? A journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. I don't know. I
Yeah.
butchered
Yeah.
that, but
That's it.
but the reality is that when we think about goals that are too big, they often become overwhelming. And so it's like one small step at a time. What's that first step that you need to take? If you're going to run a 5K, the first step might be get a good pair of running shoes. If you're saying I'm going to lose weight, the first step might be to, walk 5 minutes a day. There's so many options out there. So find out what you want and go for it. Be a Go be a gold digger. Be a gold digger. You know what I mean?
You
Be who you
can
want to be.
when I'm in
I'm saying they're a
need.
gold digger. Okay, but
Right.
but I will say, whatever you do, do it for you. Do it because it's what you want to do. And of course, whether you succeed out of spite or out of perseverance or for whatever it is, um, just go for it. The time is going to pass anyways. I mean, the time is going to pass anyways. Imagine where you could be in a year from now. Imagine where you could be in 5 years from now if you just put in that effort and that energy into doing whatever it is that you want to do. And maybe that doesn't feel possible today because of what's happening today, but it's not impossible if you put in the right amount of effort. And so just move in the right direction. Eventually you'll get to your place. Maybe not as fast or as uneventful as you would like it to be, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. I mean, I'm just a poor white girl from Winton. I'm just I grew up with hardly anything, and I'm like literally living my best life in a new country as an immigrant, ranting about my pet peeves with my buddy Carl. Like anything is possible. Anything,
And I'm just a
anything.
and I'm just a kid from a single parent family who grew up on Happy Street in San Bruno. So
That's right.
yes, that's right. And if you know what
Anything
Happy
is
Street
possible.
is, that's right. All right. And so go out and create anything, and it is possible. And
Yep.
definitely. And we will see you next time. And until
Yes.
then, I'm Carl.
And I'm Tiff, and
And
I'm gonna say keep it
blessings.
real, but get this book, Atomic Habits. Just FYI, great book about goals and changing habits. Just I wanted to throw that in there. Sorry. Sorry,
That's
not
okay,
sorry.
Tiff. And
But we'll
get
keep it
down,
real.
girl. Go ahead. Get down. Get down, girl. Go ahead. Get down. Get down, girl. Go ahead. Get down.
All right.